Brought to you by Podcast City Network.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to ELS Uncut.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of ELS Uncut. I am Everett Lee. You can follow the Everett Lee Show podcast and ELS Uncut, myself, Everett Lee, on social media at facebook.com/The Everett Lee, Twitter at The Everett Lee. And this podcast is brought to you by the Podcast City Network. Check out this podcast, ELS Uncut, The Everett Lee Show, The Chris Carnage Show, The Grimlock Show, Super Radio Brothers, Imaginarium with Scott and Todd, and Forking Around with Cody, all on the Podcast City Network at the official website, podcastcity.net. And you can follow Podcast City Network on social media, facebook.com/Podcast City Network, and on Twitter, at Podcast City Net. Wow, with all that out of the way, I'm going to try to keep this intro short and simple because with today's guest, I had him on last year on the Everett Lee Show. We did a live stream on facebook.com on the official Everett Lee Show Facebook page. Had Todd Staruch and Thomas Ryan promoting Theater of Terror, the anthology of short films like a Twilight Zone type film anthology. I got in contact with Thomas Ryan. He was with Todd, Thomas Ryan was, and they came on, promoted Theater of Terror. Well, at the beginning of the year, I tweeted out to Tom. I said, hey, I'd love to get you back on this year on the podcast, some shape or form. Tom was like, yeah, let's definitely do it. I reached out to him, and I got a hold of him, and he came on, and we had one hell of a conversation. It was just so fucking great, just talking, just having a good time, talking about different things, talking about what's going on with Theater of Terror since the last time I talked to him. Also discussing about music with Vlad The Inhaler, what's been going on with his band there, and any new music coming out, looking forward to. We discussed that. We discussed about our favorite bands in general, calling it quits after so many years. And we even got into discussion about the Marvel movie universe and DC. We talked about some of those movies and how we're both looking forward to seeing the Avengers Infinity War coming out later this year. Good conversation. Really good. And besides that, what I also been doing here lately is catching up on reading. That's right. I'm holding in my hand, I am 3 chapters from completing, is Corey Taylor's You're Making Me Hate You. It's a book that he just goes off ranting about everything from people driving in California, to waiting in the long lines at the airport, to just about anything. I'm 3 chapters almost completed. When I get done with that, I'm going to start his new book here, America 51. A probe into realities that are hiding inside the greatest country in the world. I bought the hard back cover at Barnes & Noble the other night. While I was in Barnes & Noble, I was looking for Jim Florentine's new book, which I asked the associate there if they had that, and he pointed me over to the humor section if they did have it, but as far as he know of, he looked it up and they didn't have it. He would have to order it. I was like, fuck, man, I'd love to read that new Jim Florentine book. I may have to order it online, but if so, then so be it. I will order that book if I have to. But while I was over in the humor section, I was checking out different types of books. Happened to notice Amy Schumer's latest book, and it made me think back to last week's guest, Stephanie Davis, who she mentioned that she was a fan of Amy Schumer, so I took a snap of that cover, and I sent it to her and said, hey, I was in Barnes & Noble, and look what I ran across. And she replied back. She's like, that's so awesome. I love it. So that's what I've been doing. And also on the podcast, as mentioned before, Thomas Ryan, indie film director and producer, is coming back and talking about what's been going on as lately. And we're going to jump right into that. Not going to hold up any more time ranting on. I'll see you again at the end of this interview. But first, let's take care of some business.
Hey fans, here at Podcast City Network, we have a lot of great shows.
We have a wide variety of shows that cover the landscape in podcast, a podcast for anyone and everyone.
Such as The Chris Garnett Show,
The Everett Lee Show,
ELS Uncut,
Super Radio Brothers,
Imaginarium with Scott and Todd,
Forking Around with Cody,
The Grimlock Show,
and Films of Classic.
You can catch these and a whole bunch more only on podcastcity.net or on all of our great social media outlets.
Head over to facebook.com/Podcast City Network. Hit that thumbs up. You can send a tweet to Podcast City Network on Twitter at Podcast City Net.
So make sure that you join us for all this only on Podcast City Network. You're listening to ELS Uncut.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on ELS Uncut is the returning indie film producer and director and creator of the Theater of Terror. Please welcome back Thomas Ryan. Or is it Tom Ryan?
It is Thomas, but I go by Tom too, so thanks for having me on, brother.
No problem, man. No problem. It's been a while since we caught up. I think it was like last year I had you and Todd come on and you guys were promoting the Theater of Terror. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, Theater of Terror is a production company, but we are currently working on the Theater of Terror anthology, which is basically, that's also the name of our film for this collection.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of good things happening with the Theater of Terror, with the films and stuff that's been coming out, the anthology and stuff, like The Gift, Abducted, and The Bookworm. How's that been? How's the production been on that? And those are finished, right?
Those three are completely done. They're edited. The Gift is already screening at several film festivals. We did the Macabre Fair Film Festival. We shared the Audience Choice Best Short Award with our friends Mass Grave Pictures, Lindsay Serrano and Manny Serrano, and their film Beneath. So that was a great screening. We're also screening with them this upcoming weekend at the Brightside Tavern Film Festival, Shorts Film Festival. It's in downtown Jersey City at the Brightside Tavern. And we're up for Best Horror Short, Best Actress in Heather O'Scanlan, and I'm up for a Best Director Award on The Gift. And I've submitted The Bookworm and Abducted to a few film festivals in the area and outside the area. And so fingers crossed those will be accepted to something soon. The films really came out great. The anthology, since we talked last year, so much has happened. We basically ran out and shot these three films 2 days each. It took to complete each film. Each film has an approximate runtime of 20 minutes, and they really met our expectations. I would say in some cases they also exceeded our expectations. Because as a filmmaker and I'm a writer as well, I wrote these stories. So writing the stories and then seeing them translated onto the screen and really be as close as your possible, vision for this thing was. It's exciting when you see that, and I believe that's where we're at with these three films. We have delivered that Twilight Zone-esque, that Outer Limits feel to these shorts. I think people are really going to enjoy what we put together for them. They're compact stories, they're self-contained stories, and so now we are looking towards Endangered, which is the last short in the anthology. And we're looking to try to put together a few bucks and get that film made as soon as possible.
That's awesome. That is really, really awesome. And congratulations for the nominee. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And filming these short films, you broke it up in a period of time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How's
Yeah, and so the way it works for me is I come up with a film. I send my scripts out to all the parties that I'm interested in working with me. Whoever comes on board. We cast. We set up our crew, and then I'll start a production schedule where I'll basically reach out to my actors for their availability. They're the most important ones to me because usually my crew members they're on board. So whenever we're shooting, they're there. But I'll get my cast lined up, and it's a very tedious process. It's something that a lot of people are not aware of in pre-production when you're trying to put these things together. But like I said, we did manage to shoot each short in 2 days. Now some were consecutive. In The Gift, it was consecutive Friday and Saturday, I believe. And with The Bookworm, it was actually a week apart. I think it was a Saturday and the following Sunday, perhaps, and right. Or Sunday and then Saturday. And then Abducted was also, I believe, a week apart, or maybe 2 weeks apart, if I'm mistaken. But yeah, so what I try to do is, I'll approach a short, and I break it down to simple details like what actors do I need in the same scene, and when can I shoot this as opposed to shooting something else. I try to make it as operationally functional as possible, so that we are not, we're not shooting in location A and then running to location B and then going back to location A if we don't have to. Right. We really try to make it something that's efficient. And with these films, I think we really pulled it off. There were challenges. I won't say that we didn't have long shooting days in those 2 days. We did. But yeah, I was very happy about the way that turned out, because we wanted to go into this project prepared. And because of what we were able to pull off with these shorts, I think we proved that, and that we could shoot efficiently. And it's great for the actors and the crew members, because shooting efficiently means that we can edit and do our post work efficiently. And so right. We were able, for these 3 films, to have screening parties with the cast and crew. And for them, it's unusual to shoot a film in a span of, we did all 3 films in a span of 7 months. So it was unusual for them to turn around and get to see their film within a month or 2 months of actually shooting. When you're in the indie film business, you'll get used to that. You might shoot something and then not see it for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And that's normal. And so what we were able to pull off was actually pretty impressive, I think, to be able to present these people that dedicated so much hard work and time into these projects, get to see the projects firsthand, and now they're excited. And it helps us in the promotional phase too. People see their work and they're proud of what right. they've done, and so they're happy to talk about it. And so that's something that we try to do. I'm just pulling up something here I wanted to tell you. So it was in May of 2017 we shot The Gift. It was in late July and early August that we did The Bookworm, and then in November we shot Abducted. And then the holidays were upon us, so we kind of took a hiatus before tackling our schedule for Endangered. But that's right now we're in that process right now.
That's awesome, man. I love it, man. And I remember having you coming on, you and Todd, and promoting the Indiegogo GoFundMe campaign. How did that turn out?
So the Indiegogo campaign was very stressful. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And when I say stressful, it's because you're thinking about it all the time. You're thinking about, are we meeting our goal, right? Or are we going to get to where we're going to get to? So it was a rough experience, but it was very exciting. We actually raised 56% of our goal. And so we ran for 2 months, and I honestly didn't even think we'd get close to that. And so what was very cool is that early on in the fundraising process, we had already scheduled The Gift. We were making that film, and
right.
It was great when we raised 56%. It was great because we were able to go right from The Gift into pre-production on The Bookworm, and then right from The Bookworm into pre-production on Abducted. Now, during the production for Abducted, we did run out of money, and we did have to invest some of our own dollars into getting the film done, but we were committed to it, and that's what we were going to do. Right. It actually really worked out great, considering the fact that we now have 3 standalone short films that I believe are all film festival quality films that I really feel represents what we're trying to do well. And so we could go all out with these. Like I said, right now we're submitting to the film festivals, which I think we discussed with you was part of the plan of having shorts. So we, shooting just an anthology where all these shorts had to be seen together was going to be kind of, we'd kind of be putting ourselves behind the 8 ball at that point, because festivals as it is, it's very hard for them to program feature films. And there's so many great ones out there. I know a lot of guys go straight to distribution with their indie features, but we want to get our work out there. We want it to be seen on the festival circuit, so we figured we'd do these self-contained short films and submit them that way, which we've been doing, and we're hoping that putting them in festivals now creates a buzz for the complete anthology, because you probably won't see all 3 films at a film festival. You'll probably see, I saw The Bookworm at this film festival, I saw Abducted at this one, I saw The Gift at this one. Right. So people will start to get a feel for the anthology and get excited about it when we do present it as a whole. And we're excited about that.
That is. And one thing I like about indie directors and indie filmmakers, I just talked to one last night. I talked to a indie film director, indie film producer with their own media company, Stephanie Davis, and she got to work with Kevin Smith as a script supervisor. And one thing Kevin Smith told her, and which she took advice from, was it's make the movies that you love doing, and it will show in your work. It will. Yeah. It definitely
I believe that 100%. I believe that 100%. I mean, you could see there's something about these projects, these 3 short films, that I'm very connected to them because for, my partners, Russell Hackett, Diane Hackett, Todd Staruch, this is the production team. This was a passion project for all of us from the beginning. I don't like to make films just to make films.
Right.
I like to make films of things that I'd love to see, and of course in my own mind I bring some reason to the process. In other words, knowing that I'm not going to make a Space Odyssey film right now, because I just don't have the means of what that requires to make it look good and presentable and reflect what I would envision. But so right now we're making these horror films that we can do that with, and these are things that are very dear to me. I shared writing duties on The Bookworm with Russell Hackett. I wrote The Gift and I wrote Abducted, and we're very connected to these stories. We discussed the ins and outs of these characters together, and what we were looking for, and the kind of stories these are. Like I said, being based on the old Twilight Zone type feels, and The Outer Limits and Tales from the Dark Side and Night Gallery, and I can go on. And Black Mirror is really popular now, and Channel Zero is popular now, and I think there's kind of a little bit of a hunger for anthologies, and there's an interest in it again. And what's fun for me is, as a filmmaker and as a writer, I get to explore different types of stories and different types of characters, instead of obsessing over one film and one set of characters, which happens when you're making an indie film, especially a feature. You're living that every day. And doing these shorts, it made it great, because once we were done with one, we could say, okay, now let's dive into something completely different and do this film. And that's been so much fun for us, because this is why we wanted to do an anthology in the first place, was to explore different types of horror characters, creatures that we were always big fans of.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the Twilight Zone, like we talked about last time, you don't see much of an anthology like the Twilight Zone like you used to, and I like the anthology, and I like how you have it to where you'll see one film here at this one film festival and this film at this film festival, and I'm sure you've gotten already a lot of really good, lot of positive feedback with screenings and stuff.
Yeah, we have. In particular, we had a screening for The Bookworm at the Glenridge Library, thanks to Jennifer Brewer, our good friend over there at the library, and we basically advertised it to library patrons. It was not. I did not publicize it on Facebook and created events, and it was not. It was really a private screening for the library and their patrons, which was very cool for us because we get to show our product to people that are not indie horror lovers, that are not in the scene, that don't watch tons of these movies. These are just regular people that might have Netflix or Hulu or whatever provider is giving them the films that they watch with their families on Friday night. So that was a great experience for us. We had a packed house, and for that it was about 60 people. It was a council chamber attached to the library from City Hall, and it was a great turnout from these everyday people, and they were really intrigued by the entire thing. They really loved it, and that was great feedback for us because ultimately, what we're trying to do is create indie horror films that indie horror film lovers will really enjoy. They'll enjoy maybe the quality and the storytelling and our creativity, and at the same time we could appeal to a broader audience, and that helps us. For what we're ultimately looking for would be distribution or streaming, video on demand, or whatever we could get. That's important because you want people to watch your movies. So.
Yeah, exactly. I was going through your Facebook feed here. I'm looking at a lot of things going on. I try to check up and try to keep up with everybody that I talk with and have acquaintances with and friends with on their news feeds. And sometimes I have to go directly to their news feed because I may miss something on just the news feed when you go on Facebook. And I was going through yours here, and the latest post with you, it looked like you were getting some kind of something done to your face or head. Yeah. So that was all in relation to the amazing screening last night of premiere screening of Black Wake in Manhattan. I got together with a lot of friends. It was amazing. We were in this film. This film we actually shot about 2.5 years ago, and the picture that you're referring to is actually me getting a head cast for a special effect that was done in the film. Oh, okay. And I have a very small part in it. It's directed by Jeremiah Kipp, produced by Carlos Keys, it was such a fun screening that we had last night. And these are pictures that I've had undercover for a few years, waiting for the film to premiere. Oh, okay.
And so I thought it was time I could share them.
Right.
It was really, really a great shoot. Jeremiah is a great director, and he's a very good friend of mine, and I enjoy working with him, and it was great to see this come together. So many of the people I know in the indie film industry have parts in this film. They play the smallest parts of zombies to speaking roles, and it's just it was really fantastic, and it's really what I believe the indie film scene is about. When you have a project like this that's that much fun, a great turnout at the screening last night. That was over at the East Village Cinema, or Village East Cinema, but it was very, very cool. If you haven't seen the movie, you should see it. It's a very trippy film, very much like a H.P. Lovecraft type. It's written by Jerry Janda.
Oh, okay.
And Jeremiah and Carlos, I believe, also participating in some rewrites. It was at the Philip K. Dick Science Film Fiction Festival. That's what I was trying to look up. And that was my first time at that festival, but it was a great turnout, great red carpet, great after party, great flick. Very impressive and just a lot of fun, and spoiler alert, but I die in the film, and I love that.
Well, you said small part. You said small part, so I kind of figured. But
it's a very small part, so I don't think you'll care. But
I'd watch it just to see what happens. And I'm looking at the still pictures here on your Facebook page, and I'm looking through them, and I could tell it's like you said, a zombie type apocalypse movie.
Yeah, very, very much so. Definitely got a very Lovecraftian feel to it. There's creatures in the film, so it's kind of, and it's also a found footage film, so it's got a little bit of a different feel than you would expect, from a film of this type.
Right. Right.
So it was very interesting, and some great actors. Tom Sizemore was fantastic in it.
Yeah.
Eric Roberts.
Roberts.
But yeah,
I saw that. I see that. I was like, Tom Sizemore. I was like, oh man, and Eric Roberts. I love their work. I love the work they've done in movies, and that is awesome. How was it working on the set with them and hanging out with them and making this movie?
Didn't share any scenes with them at all. We're never on set together. I only met Tom last night at the premiere.
Okay.
And he's a very gracious guy and a very kind guy. But I was never on set with them. I joke to everybody about how now I could walk around saying, "Oh, I was in this movie with Tom Sizemore and Eric Roberts," and I didn't get to meet Eric, but Tom was a great guy, and Jeremiah spoke last night at the Q&A and actually mentioned what a great experience it was working with Tom Sizemore, and what a great character Eric Roberts is, and the way that he contributes that to his performance.
Right.
So. Jeremiah had nothing but good things to say about that, so that was really cool. And it's and they're great. It's a campy type film, and it's great to see to have guys like this with their talent just to lend that weight to it.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome that you get to be in a movie. Yeah, you'd say, hey, I was in a movie with Tom Sizemore.
Yeah.
I love
really
that.
Twist that around to sound.
I love that, and I'm glad you had a good time at the premiere. And
I did. It was a blast. And I just want to throw a quick shout out to Kelly Ray Legault, who also was in the film, and she plays a pretty prominent role in the film. And she was very, very impressive. I really enjoyed that, her part in the film, and I just wanted to give her that shout out. I told her last night too, but I just thought I'd shout it out. She was really great.
That's awesome. That is.
Yeah.
You were talking about Amazon Prime. I was noticing on your Facebook feed here that you have Faces on Amazon Prime. I'm definitely going to have to check that out now because I have a Prime membership. I'm definitely going to have to check
it's free on Prime. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, because I was talking to my wife today, and I said we were going through because we got the Fire Stick TV with the Alexa voice on the remote, and I was messing around with that earlier today. And I said, we got Amazon Prime, right? She said, yeah, we already have it. I said, all right, that's cool because we go on Amazon Prime, we get to watch a lot of stuff that's free. And I seen that right here on your Facebook feed on your page. And if it's definitely on Prime, I'm definitely going to watch it because I'd like to see that because we briefly talked about that last time too when you were on. Could you give me a recap, a refresher on what Faces is about?
Yeah, so Faces is about a guy named Frank Walker that suffers from some unspecified form of psychosis, schizophrenia. And the film is basically follows, it starts with the beginning of the end of Frank's ability to cope with what's happening to him. He's living on his own, and he's not working, and he's owes back rent, and you could see that he's extremely socially awkward. He's basically an introvert, and the pressures of life that most of us face kind of come crumbling, down on him like an avalanche of responsibility. And so Frank meets this fellow named Charlie, and this guy Charlie begins steering Frank's life in the right direction once they kind of settle their issues that they have with each other. And so I'm trying not to give you any spoilers in the thing, but that's basically what it's, and the film definitely builds. It's a thriller, and it builds to one of those classic intense endings at the climax. So I highly recommend it, man. I think that you will enjoy it. And when you're on Prime, and what I tell everybody, if you didn't like the film, you can give me a low rating. I won't take any offense to it. Let the truth be known how you feel. Right. But I really do like it. If you can go on there and at least give us a rating or give us a review. We have about 2 or 3 bad reviews on there, so we welcome them all, and it's part of getting your stuff out there and getting feedback on your work. So please watch it and let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, excuse me. I mean, with the reviews and stuff, good, get feedback. If you liked it, you liked it. If you don't, you don't. I was reading that right there what you said. Think it stinks? Leave us a low rating and a bad review.
Yeah.
Love it.
Please
leave us a high rating and a good review. It's that simple. I love how it's straight to the point, man. It's like, if you're gonna like it, you're gonna like it. If not, just let me know.
Yeah, listen, this is art, and I know it's all subjective, and I can expect that people will either like or dislike it, and that's just human nature. And I take no offense to that, and I'm not trying to twist anybody's arm into watching something that they don't want to see. But if they do watch it, like I say, I welcome the truth. It only helps me grow as a filmmaker. If you come back and give me some bad criticism on Amazon and I read it and it's valid criticism, I'll definitely take it into account. If it's silly stuff about, the movie should have ended this way, or that's all subjective. So you can't let that kind of stuff bother you. But bad acting, bad directing, bad lighting, bad sound, bad whatever, let me know. And we're trying to fix all that stuff, and that's why we're doing it.
That's awesome, man. That really is. So what else have you been working on besides movies? I'm trying to think here. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about Vlad The Impaler. How's that going?
The Inhaler.
Yeah, the Inhaler. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
How's Vlad The Inhaler doing? How's the band and how's the music going?
So right now we're kind of in that hiatus and writing stage where I'm getting together with the guitar player Anthony, and him and I are working on some new riffs. We're in touch with our drummer, our keyboard player, our backup singer, and we're just kind of putting some stuff out there into our musical universe. A lot of our music is drawn from stuff that we wrote 20 years ago when we used to jam in our apartment and just leave the tape recorder recording. We sometimes came up with some really good riffs and some really good progressions and changes and potential choruses and bridges and hooks and all, And so a lot of times when we're writing new material, I go into that vault of old riffs and say, I always like this riff. I want to do something with it. And so we're kind of in that stage right now. I've been listening to some of our old stuff from college, and just getting some ideas. Basically, our first two albums are songs that were not the majority of, but at least 50% of the songs were written about 20 years ago, or at least riffs from those songs were written, and then we built the rest of the song around that one riff or that one idea. So right now, that's kind of where we're at. After the last album came out, we kind of went on a bit of a hiatus, and it happens. I mean, we work so hard to put an album together and get songs perfected that you kind of want that getaway. It's kind of the same thing with filmmaking, right? There's so much that goes into it. You're not only writing the songs, but you're practicing the songs and perfecting the songs, and then you're going into the studio and doing the songs, and then you're sitting with the guy that's mixing and you're telling him what you got to do in the mix down or what sound you're looking for. And then from there, now you're going and you're getting all your own CDs printed up, and you're going online and joining all these sites so that you could put your music on there for digital download. And you're doing all that. Now you got to work on the cover art for the CDs, and you're working on the cover art for your band. You got to get band photos, and then you got to put this stuff out. Now you got to market yourself, and you're going on social media, and you're going, you're reaching out to friends and family, and you're holding events and shows, and you're trying to do all this stuff. So by the time all this is said and done, man, you just want to say, I just need a break. I just need to take a break. And the same thing happens with films. There's the level that we're on. There's so much effort put in, by the individual to get something going. We don't have marketing teams. We don't have agents. We don't have producers that are just like throwing money at us. You know what I mean? Where everybody's got to work hard so that you don't have to spend that kind of money to get out there. We're trying to utilize all the tools that are at our disposal to do that. And then when you're done with this massive project and working on something like this, you just kind of want to take a break for a little while. That's kind of where the band is at. But we're gearing up. I mean, you get the fever again right away, and all of a sudden, my guitarist has been coming to the house, and him and I have been jamming together for the past couple of months just on new licks, and we're just coming up with some exciting stuff. And now I'm starting to get that bug again, and it's kind of weird when you're still in the filmmaking phase. But it won't be the first time that's crossed over, and maybe we'll be coming up with some cool music. Him and I actually have a song called "The Devil's Hiding" in our film Abducted, in the short film Abducted. It was something we were working on just as an idea, and we brought it together just in time for the film. And what's cool is that we've gotten a lot of great feedback on the song. Everybody's like, man, I saw in the credits, that's your song. That's great. So that was very cool.
That is awesome. And speaking of music, what do you think about? Have you heard about bands that's been around for the last, say, like 40 years, calling it quits? I believe Judas Priest, Rush, and Slayer have basically said, we're done.
Yeah.
I was shocked with Rush when I heard about Rush. I'm like, really? Because I figured that would be a band that would go on for a very long time. And then I was in total shock when Slayer's like, we're done. And I was like, okay. But then if you think about it, these bands that are calling it quits, what else do they really got to prove? You know, I mean, they've toured the world. They've went all over the place and everything. And I was saying to someone about Slayer, they're like, they came to me and said, hey, Slayer's calling it quits. I was like, well, how more evil can you be?
Yeah, right.
They've already
you know, for those guys, I mean, and the truth be told, Slayer hasn't been Slayer for a long time, right? You know, Jeff is dead, and so Dave's hasn't been with the band for what, 20 years, 25 years, however long it's been.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And so with that said, I think a lot of these guys, they still have the energy to do it. And look, I mean, these bands are classic bands. I love these guys too. I don't blame them for wanting to call it quits. You know, look, let's face it. The last time I went to an Iron Maiden show was recently. I think it was in the Meadowlands, Giant Stadium.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Maiden is great, and I got to say that Bruce Dickinson runs around the stage like he's 18 years old. I mean, the guy is jumping off risers and speakers, and he's like picking up the British flag and running across the stage with it, and waving it, and crouching down and pointing at the crowd. His butt's touching the ground. He's getting so low, and the guy is still super athletic. And from what I understand, he still plays like soccer and everything, so he gets a lot of exercise, but I mean, they haven't missed a beat. They sound great. Bruce is a fantastic vocalist. He still sounds great. Can still hit the notes.
Yeah, he definitely can.
The worst thing about that show is I'm looking at the crowd, and we're all so old in the crowd. Nobody's moving. Nobody's excited. And I turned around to my friend and I said to him, you know, this is not fair to this band. I said, these guys deserve an 18-year-old crowd, and they don't have that.
Yeah.
They deserve like when we were seeing these bands, we were 15 and 16 and 17 and 18 and 19 and 20, and we were young and we were energetic, and they'd come on stage and the crowd would explode, and you would go to the stadiums and you would see, when I saw the Clash of the Titans with Slayer and Anthrax and Megadeth and Alice in Chains, and the crowd was going crazy. They ripped seats out of the stadium, and it was a mess in the Garden.
Wow.
It was insane. And those bands got what they deserved from the crowd, because those bands are great. And nowadays, I think the problem with these classic bands like Maiden or Priest, they're just not getting the young crowd. I know there's a handful of young metals that's like, oh, I love classic Priest, or I love this and stuff, and that's very cool. But I'm telling you, man, when I went to that Maiden show, we were in the nosebleeds, number one, so we weren't even down on the floor. So I had the perfect view of the stadium. And honestly, there was not a person on the floor that looked like they were enjoying the show.
Right.
And I felt so bad for Bruce. I'm like, this dude is up there basically doing backflips on stage, and he can't even get the crowd to move, to run to the hills. Nobody's like, you know, pumping fists. It's a shame. So I don't blame the dudes for retiring, man.
Right.
They're looking out in the audience, and I think that's what they're seeing.
Yeah, they are, and it is a shame because, you know, it's like the mainstream like don't touch metal music what they once at one point like they once did, and 18-year-olds, young 20-year-olds, they should be out there. They should be experiencing it and seeing the energy of a band like that, because my wife was going to get tickets to go to Slayer. They were coming to Florida, and she mentioned how much they were for the price and everything, and we never did come to an agreement about it. But then I got to thinking, I was like, I would like to see them at least one more time going around, like especially like AC/DC and Ozzy. I think it was Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath retired, but Ozzy's still going on, and he's doing his what is it? How many times has Ozzy retired himself?
Yeah, oh yeah, right, sure.
I remember as a teenager, he had that, no more. I think it was the No More Tears tour, or it was the retirement tour or something. And then he comes back later with the Retirement Sucks tour. It's like,
yeah. I mentioned this to a friend of mine, Todd. Actually, Todd is a huge Rush fan. And Todd
I know he's a big Rush fan, man.
Oh, he loves them, and he says, "Wow." He goes, "I never thought this day would come, but Rush is calling it quits." And then I says, "Yeah, until the reunion show." So it's always. And, I'm sorry, and not to say that all these bands have this in mind,
mm-hmm.
but look, when you have guys that'll work until their 80s because they know as soon as they retire they're going to die. There's just people that know that, like they just want to work, they want to stay busy, they want to stay occupied. A lot of these guys, these are rock stars. They're so used to the road, they're so used to that life. Then they settle down at home for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're listening to somebody talk about the band and how they wish that they'd get together, or they hear whispers that some other band was going to do a reunion gig, and it would be great if those guys could open, or if those guys could be part of it or something, and that buzz starts to hit them, and I'm sure it's a real draw for a lot of guys to come out of retirement. So I don't, it's funny and we laugh at it. I don't criticize them for that behavior, because I'm sure that it's a draw, man. Rock and roll is awesome, and being on stage is awesome, and especially if you're a big star like that, to get in front of the audience again and to kind of live that moment again, it's great. Some of these guys, I mean, look at Clapton, man. He's going to be doing it till he's in the grave.
I know.
It's just, I know. They have to.
Yeah, they do. Look at the Rolling Stones, man. Look at Mick Jagger. Someone mentioned they saw a recent concert of the Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger, at his age, he's running around like he's 20 years old still, man. They have that energy, and it's like they're not going to stop until they decide on their own terms they're going to stop, Right. And it just amazes me that a lot of bands like that keep on going. Clapton's still going, the Stones are still going, and I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that's still going, but it's just, and then bands calling it quits on their own terms. I'm like, wow, you wouldn't expect that. It comes out of left field there. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
I was just recently listening to Eddie Trunk on his podcast he has, and he had, I forget his name, he's the guitarist and the creator behind Skid Row, and there's been talks about, Sebastian coming back and doing a reunion tour, and then it was like, no, that's not happening.
That's all I need to see, is Sebastian Bach walking around without his shirt on and tight leather pants again, please. That's all we need right now.
I know.
Is 60-year-old. How old is Sebastian Bach?
Sebastian, I think
he's got to be in his 50s, right?
Yeah, I believe he's pushing about 50. He's in his late 40s or early 50s. He's up there. He's got to
be older than that.
Yeah,
he's got to be in his. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember as a kid when Skid Row was just big on MTV with the Headbangers Ball and stuff, man. I miss those days, seeing a lot of great bands like that. And who would have thought, man, Danzig and the Misfits doing a couple of reunion shows.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. I love the Misfits.
I do too. And it's like they finally, it's good. I like to see, bands, members, ex-members come back together and at least do something for like a reunion, if possible. If not, then it's going to be talked about, like I was talking about, the whispers of a reunion tour, and it's just crazy. It is. It
is crazy. I never expected that to happen for the Misfits to get back together. And I've seen Danzig plenty of times, and I've seen Danzig with Doyle, and they've done Misfit stuff, and Danzig will do Misfit stuff in these shows too. But it's cool to see, the majority of the original lineup up there playing the old Misfits tunes. It's just a shame that they waited so long. It would have been great to see them do that in the 90s, when they were really all kind of peaking. But better late than never, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, heck, if you remember, there was at that one point Genesis got back with they had Peter Gabriel. He came back, for that short time, and they did a reunion tour, and he left, and it's good, like look at David Lee Roth. Who would ever thought David Lee Roth would ever got back in Van Halen?
Yeah. Again, better late than never. But it's a shame that these guys wait until they've gotten so old before they do stuff like this. This reminds me of something I always just say about Arnold Schwarzenegger making Conan movies. That they really, if Conan the Barbarian had come out today, they would have made like 7 movies, easy. Like they would have just said, "This guy's great. Let's just keep." I mean, the way that they make Marvel movies now, they would have said, "Oh, let's just crank out these." And Conan would have been loaded with CGI and everything. But if you think about the original Conan the Barbarian movie and how great it was, how great the story and the writing was, and if they easily could have made that into a trilogy if they had just jumped on that bus when it was rolling by, and they didn't.
And
they really missed the mark. So now I know they were talking about Conan coming back to play King Conan, and that talk's kind of died down. I heard that a couple of years ago, and it's died down. But I mean, now it's just too late, right? He's not going to look like he did then, and
no.
It's a shame that they missed that opportunity.
It is. I remember you posted something about, I believe it was you that posted something about Conan, and I threw up a picture. I sent it to you, I believe, or I posted it. I have on DVD. It's a dual disc of Conan the Barbarian, and on the other side is Conan the Destroyer.
Oh, excellent.
And I had a good stereo surround system, 5.1 DTS system, home theater system one time, and when I first got that, I got it real cheap, the DVD. I believe they had it like on a bargain thing, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh man, I got to get it. And I put it in there, and I'm trying to adjust the stereo and the surround, and then I'm like, why is it not? And then I looked at the box, and it was the sound was recorded in mono. It's like 2.0, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is back before they had mono. They mixed it in mono. And so it's like I only had it through the front speakers, and when all the action happening, it was all up front of the room. It's like you didn't hear nothing in the back. It's like, damn. And it's like, okay. So I turned that off and just watched it regular. But
sure,
you mentioned Marvel Comics, superheroes. I seen that you were catching up on the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Wars.
I as far as the comics go, those are actually really old comics, and I just pulled them out because I have a friend, Lou Livitz, who's also my director of photography on Abducted, and he's a buddy of mine. I've known him for years, and Lou's an avid comic collector, and I posted that to show him that I had all these old Infinity issues. I have not caught up on them, and I wanted to.
Right.
I probably will after the film. I'll be honest with you. I really don't want any reminders. I want to go in like totally fresh.
Right.
I read all those. That was years ago. I do not remember the intricacies of the story. But I think I will catch up one day because it's very cool that I did keep them. And now that it's such a hot commodity, it's all over. It's all over Hollywood, this superhero stuff, and so it's really kind of taken over that blockbuster genre, our superhero films, and so it's cool. That was just kind of me taking a walk down memory lane, saying, "Man, look at all these that I read," I used to be really big into those.
Yeah, I have actually. I've seen the picture that you posted on which ones you have. I actually have about a couple of those of the Infinity Wars, and they've brought it out. I think 2 or 3 runs because they had that first run, and then years later they brought it back out with a second run, but they kind of changed up things, and then I believe they came out with the last final run. If I'm sure 2 or 3 runs they had. But the first run was like the best because everything that happened in that was like, wow, you wouldn't expect it and stuff. And I'm psyched to see the Infinity War Part 1. I'm excited to see it because I definitely want to see how much of a badass Thanos is, man, because when he has that glove, man.
Yeah, I'm expecting big things from him for sure, because they do show a couple of scenes where it seems like he's just slapping everybody around like rag dolls.
Yeah.
So that's going to be cool.
He is. And I'm looking forward to a lot of the movies, the Marvel comic book movies. I enjoy those. I love watching them. I still need to see Black Panther because I got really excited when I saw him in Civil War, Captain America Civil War. I loved it. And I'm waiting for Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out in July. And then, of course,
that also looks good. Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, Captain Marvel. That's going to be coming out too.
Now, that's going to be a TV series or a movie?
It's going to be a movie. It is.
Okay.
It is. Okay. Yeah, they got Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel, and one thing that was posted up on Twitter, it was in the news feed on the Twitter. They said that she's actually taking the role real serious, and she's going and doing research. She's going to military bases, and she's checking out stuff, trying to get down that character, which I think is awesome because it shows she's 100% committed into being this character. And I love when I hear stuff like that. An actor or actress does extra research on a part that they're playing for just showing I'm 100% into it, and I just love it, and I just can't wait to see what that movie's going to be like.
Yeah, that should be good. I haven't seen a lot of that, to be honest with you, but now that you mention it, I think I did see a picture of her. Was there a photo released recently of her in the costume?
Yeah, she was released in the costume. And, of course, there was some positive and, of course, negative, and with the feedback, and then finally there was people that cleared it up and said the costume she's wearing was I forget what it was, pre-Captain America or the beginning stages of Captain America. Then they said certainly later you're going to see her in the costume that she wears. Yeah.
You know, you're always going to be up against that with the fans because everybody's has to be, you know, pleased with what you're doing when you're taking a comic book character and putting them on the screen. And look, and I understand when they're making a Spider-Man movie. I mean, I want to see Spider-Man in the Spider-Man costume. I don't want them to say, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something different. That would, of course, you know, upset me to a certain extent, but I'd be disappointed.
Right.
In that. With that said, I think people don't realize how wonderful it is for somebody that's my age. I'm 45 now, who grew up watching, you know, Lou Ferrigno painted green, and watching Spider-Man in a ridiculous tight suit, throwing a rope over a wall and climbing up a rope like it's his web. And I don't think people appreciate what they are now getting to enjoy that as a child I would have absolutely gone ape shit over. You know, we and don't get me wrong, we went ape shit over the Lou Ferrigno Bill Bixby Hulk as well. But when I see what they're doing now, and they can actually have him flipping tanks into helicopters, and you know, the way they've got the CGI and the way that he looks and the transformations and everything, it's so phenomenal. And it's just I'll be honest, I don't care what they do with the stories and the characters as much, and the costumes as much, if they continue to deliver the kind of quality films that they are. I mean, Marvel's got the formula, and they're doing it pretty close to the vest. They're keeping it pretty legit as far as canon goes and stuff. They're making alterations because you have to move the story. You know, there's not 100 comic book issues between, you know, you can't do 100 movies between, you know, Captain America and then finally till the Avengers movie. So you have to condense all that storyline into a movie. Like, here's how Captain America changes, and here's how he becomes Captain America. Now here's how he gets soured to S.H.I.E.L.D. and turned off to the government, and then here's how, you know. So they do have to kind of shorten the story to do that. And so, you know, you're going to miss a lot of those transitions that in a comic it took 100 issues to show you all the storyline that built up to that. But I think they're doing a phenomenal job. I think people should just chill out and not be too critical. We're not going to be pleased with every single version of everything that they do. I've already heard people criticizing Thanos, and look, I loved Justice League, man, and people came down on that one for Steppenwolf or whatever, but my kids loved it. I took my kids to see it, and they loved it, and that's what's important to me is these are the unsullied opinions of children checking out a superhero movie, and they dug it. So
right.
I think if people need to chill out sometimes. It's cool when they get it close and they do it right, but when they make artistic changes to it, people need to forget that they don't actually have any ownership in these characters or these storylines or anything. They're just a consumer and a customer, and either you like it or you don't. You have a choice.
Yeah, definitely. I know Marvel, with their stories and their movies, they planned it out in the last 10 years. 9 years.
Yeah.
They planned it all out. I mean, it started with Iron Man. At the end of Iron Man, after the end credit scene with Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury coming in and saying, "Let me talk to you about the Avengers initiative," and it just snowballed into that, and we got all these other great characters they brought out with their own movies. And one cast I did like, I didn't think I would really like much, was the Guardians of the Galaxy. After seeing that first movie, I was like, wow, I wanted more. And then when I saw the second one, I just was like, this is just the best, because this dysfunctional group of outcasts can function together like a family and a unit in their own unique way.
Yeah. I think what was great about Guardians is how much fun the movie is.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
It's really fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to something like the Avengers, the Avengers is not as much fun. I mean, it's just not. No. The Age of Ultron is not as much fun either. And you could see, I think after Guardians, I think Marvel is going to start to let that bleed into a lot of films. I mean, look at Thor Ragnarok, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie was, people say it was almost a comedy. It was so lighthearted. And I think that's where Marvel is getting it right, where besides having great casting, great effects, great sets, great storylines that they're choosing from the comic books to put together, besides doing all that, the writing is keeping it light so that, we could have a chuckle over this film, because remember, we're watching a cartoon on screen, basically a comic on screen.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing an amazing job of it, and they just knocked it out of the park with Guardians, and now Guardians 2. Yes. I understand that Black Panther is phenomenal as well. Yes. I like all the Marvel movies, to be honest with you. I know people don't like Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 3, and I like those too.
I enjoy them all. I enjoy them all. I know people crap on Thor: The Dark World. I thought it was really good because it gave me more. I love the story because it gave more of an insight on what was going on, and it dealt with a part of which will later on be used in the Infinity War with one of the Infinity Stones, because we've seen already movies that already showed an Infinity Stone here and there, like with the first Captain America, we saw that. The Avengers, the first Avengers movie, Doctor Strange, Thor: The Dark World, and the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. We already seen the stones. And I liked Thor: The Dark World because it was, to me, it was good. People are like, it's a piece of shit. And I'm like, no, man. I was like, I liked it. I enjoyed it. The first Thor, I loved. I thought it was great. And it's just DC. I love the DC comic shows. I feel they've nailed down the CW shows like Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. I feel that they've nailed it down on TV. I know they've been struggling on, the big screen and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just Marvel, to me, they own the movie universe when it comes to comic book movies. DC owns TV. I mean, look, like other shows like Gotham,
I love Gotham. Gotham is fantastic. And I agree with you that, it does seem that DC, Marvel has the upper hand when it comes to making quality superhero films, which, let's face it, making movies is hard, and especially when you're dealing with these characters. And I'm not sure why it is that DC can't seem to find it. I think it might be the approach. I know people don't like that darker tone, and we were just talking about the more lighthearted tone,
right?
In the Marvel movies. I personally loved Man of Steel. I thought it was the best Superman movie I'd seen ever.
I enjoyed it too, man.
The original with Christopher Reeve, and I love Christopher Reeve. But when I saw, gosh, what's his name? I just drew a blank.
Oh yeah, Henry or Harry.
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. Yes.
Yeah, and just I said, this guy is Superman. He's fantastic. I thought the movie was well made. I loved that he had to kill Zod at the end.
Yes.
I was so impressed with that film. Batman versus Superman, I would have loved that film a lot more had there been some different casting, like for Luthor. Although I do like Jesse Eisenberg in other movies, his performance in this film, I don't know, it just kind of seemed a little flat to me, and it seemed like it was him being him and just trying. And it's when we think Luthor, we never think crazy, and so I think he was more trying to portray, because they mentioned that Lex was his father, right? So he's the son of Luthor, right? He's Lex's son. I know and they mentioned that, I think, in Man of Steel. Your father would be so proud of you, Mr. Luthor, or something like that. And so he's playing the son. In the comics, the son is a little bit more of a nut. But I just, I think that's where they should have decided, let's go classic Lex, and bring in somebody who, and I thought Kevin Spacey was a very good Lex Luthor when he was in Superman Returns. Right. But just somebody that fit the mold a little bit better. Although I did really enjoy that movie. I love the fights between him and Batman. I thought they were great.
Yeah, that right there. I was talking with Todd when I had him on, and we were sitting there talking about Batman versus Superman, and I said, Batman, when he was preparing to fight Superman, I said it reminded me of Schwarzenegger preparing to take on the Predator. That was cool, because Batman doing everything with the kryptonite, getting all set up, and he basically trapped Superman, had him come to where he wanted him, and once he got him in that area, and then when Superman got infected for the first time of kryptonite, that was a moment right there, because it was like he never experienced anything like that before, and when that kryptonite smoke grenade hit him, and he was like, what is this? And then when Batman comes in and just pounds him with a fist, man, he was like, he's never been hit that hard.
That's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites, because he's pounding him, and then you see him, the gloves start to bend, right? Batman's glove starts to get dented, on his chin. It's a great scene.
Yeah, it is. And Superman's like, he's like, whoa, what the heck? He's like, I haven't been hit that hard since since Zod,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why am I feeling like this? You could tell the facial expressions. It's like, what's happening to me? It's like, I'm Superman. It's like, what is weakening me? It's like, wow. I mean, that was just great. It just everything he did and stuff. And I enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought he brought a different character, more ruthless Batman. You know what I mean?
Definitely, he might be my favorite Batman.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's gonna flip out, and I loved Michael Keaton, but let's face it, he was stuck in that rubber suit that they gave him, and there wasn't much that he could do visually like a comic book Batman could do. And obviously there's CGI involved in what Ben Affleck was able to do athletically in that film, as far as swinging and kicking and punching and But the way they shot that was the definitive Batman. I mean, that was, shooting the hook gun, grabbing somebody, pulling them, punching them as he gets closer, kicking a crate to knock somebody over, throwing the batarang to knock a gun out of somebody's hand, and all of these fluid motions.
Yes.
I thought they shot that, and this is what I love Zack Snyder too. I really do. I know people are critical of him. I love his films. Some of them are there's a little too much slow motion, but whatever. Right. I could dig it. I could dig it.
Oh, yeah.
But I love the way that is shot in Batman vs. Superman. I just love the way that those scenes of him tackling the thugs in the warehouse it's beautiful. Like I said, it's definitive Batman, straight off the comic book pages.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. The fight scenes was just amazing, and how they were choreographed was just freaking amazing. I loved it. I definitely did. Yeah,
and he looked great in a costume. Let's face it. He looked like that Frank Miller big, Batman. Awesome.
Yeah, he did. And this Batman also reminded me of the. Are you familiar with the Flashpoint paradox with the Flash story?
I am. Yes.
Yeah. Remember when he changed the past and saved his mom, and when he came to the future, everything was all different and stuff. And what was it? Thomas Wayne was Batman, and he basically was ruthless with guns and everything. This is what that Batman reminded me of. It reminded me of the Thomas Wayne from the Flashpoint paradox.
Okay, cool. I could see that. I can see that.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I'm like, Batman using guns, and then I heard people's like, Batman don't use guns. I'm like, Thomas Wayne did in the Flashpoint paradox, because he was mad. He was pissed because his son got killed, and that timeline, And I thought that was neat, because I figured it was neat seeing them bring that type of Batman out that you've seen like in the cartoon movie of that and on the comics, and it was awesome seeing it like live action, which was just fantastic.
Right, especially when they're highlighting the arrival of Darkseid, and it's the dream sequence.
Yeah,
and Batman's got the gun and he's fighting with the crowd. I thought that was such a great scene, and it made so much sense. He's not in an alleyway where he's going to be jumping down and breaking somebody's neck, or and then shooting back up to the roof and quietly being like a ninja. You're in the middle of this camp of armed guys. It only makes sense that he comes and he's ready to use a machine gun on people. You know what I mean? That was cool. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I did too. So we're both definitely excited about the Marvel comic book movies coming out this year, and I want to congratulate you on everything with the Theater of Terror, and it's awesome that you got nominated and everything going on with that. Is there anything else that's going on that you want to let people know to look out for?
Well, I just want to promote the fact that we are going to be launching another Indiegogo to try to make up the difference between what we fell short of on the last attempt. Hopefully now people will take a look and see that we have basically kept up our end of the bargain and delivered 3 quality short films that they'll be able to see locally, hopefully at some screenings soon and some film festivals. So I'm hoping that they will help us out as we try to raise funds for the last film, Endangered, and there's going to be a wraparound story, which, like I said, all these shorts are standalone films. But we're going to have a wraparound story that when all 4 are complete, to our contributors that qualify at that contribution level, that donation level, I think it was maybe $50, but you will get a DVD with all 4 shorts on it, including the wraparound story that connects the 4 shorts, and the anthology as a whole will only be available through us on DVD. So that's going to be kind of like a little bonus for our contributors, and for anybody that's interested in that might have seen one of the films at a film festival and wants to see the rest. They pick up a DVD, they see the rest of the films, and they get this collector's wraparound story that puts all the films together into the full anthology.
Awesome, man! Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me, man. Had a blast, man. Yeah.
Thanks, me too, man. It was fun. I'm glad we got to cover a lot of different topics. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome.
Do it! Just do it! No, what are you waiting for? Do it!
Want more ELS? The Everett Lee Show podcast is available at the following. Download the audio version of this podcast and previous podcast at everetleeshow.libsyn.com, Stitcher.com, Everett Lee Show. Leave us a rating and a comment in the comments section. iTunes, subscribe to ELS The Everett Lee Show on iTunes. Give us a rating and a comment. For the video version of this podcast and previous podcasts, visit youtube.com Everett Lee Show. For interview segments, visit dailymotion.com/Everett Lee Show.
Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
ELS, The Everett Lee Show, is your shot of entertainment to the head. I want to thank Thomas Ryan for coming on and discussing a lot of different things with me. Had a hell of a time, man. I love catching up with guests I've had on the podcast. If it's on The Everett Lee Show or having them on this new podcast, ELS Uncut, just being uncensored, just discussing without no filter. That's what this podcast is for. Just a interview podcast and a podcast on discussion, a different variety of random conversations, unfiltered, uncensored, how they're supposed to be with two people just kicking back and having a good conversation. You can follow Thomas Ryan on Facebook. Just look him up on Facebook, Thomas Ryan. You can also find Thomas Ryan on Twitter, Tom Ryan, at Tom Terror 1. That's capital TOM, capital TERROR, and the number 1. Follow him. Check out what's going on with what he's doing and what projects is going on. And again, I want to thank him for coming on, and I hope he comes back again in the future. Let us know what's going on with new projects and what's happening. And that is it for ELS Uncut. And be sure, before I hit the outro music, follow Podcast City Network on Facebook. Facebook.com/Podcast City Network, and on Twitter at Podcast City Net. And visit the official website, podcastcity.net, the home of The Everett Lee Show, ELS Uncut, Films of Classic, Forking Around with Cody, The Grimlock Show, The Chris Carnage Show, Super Radio Brothers, Imaginarium with Scott and Todd. All coming to you from Podcast City Network. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening and viewing this podcast. We'll see you again next week on another episode of ELS Uncut.